TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We've got the power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard, the world's greatest radio. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week at this time with Mr. Neely Fuller. You can hear The Compensatory Concept. You can hear it live every week, beginning at 10. If you're listening live, you'll hear it at 10 a.m. every Wednesday morning. 10 in the a.m. Now, that's Eastern Standard Time. So if you're living in California, you'd probably be listening to it at 7. If you're living in other spots, 8, 9. But here in the East Coast, it's 10 o'clock a.m. Or if you can't get up, or if you're rushing to go to work and you may not be able to sit and listen to it, or you cannot get in your car, because in some cars, internet is there, will be there, and that's going to be a biggie real soon. You'll be able to hear it on the internet. But joining me, of course, is Mr. Fuller, and if you can't catch it, you can always go to TalkTainmentRadio.com. You can hit programs and then look for The Compensatory Concept, and then voila, hit it up, and you can listen to programs that you were not able to get. But joining me, of course, every Wednesday at this time, 10 a.m. live, is Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Mr. Fuller, how are you, sir?
I'm still learning.
Mr. Fuller, tell us about your two, there have been names and labels I've been scooting around with, but I think the one I like the most is definitive. And not only is it a classic, these are classic works, but I think equally it's definitive. Tell us about these two most definitive works on racism. Mr. Fuller.
Well, the basic title is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's the basic title of the books, and the basic title of the concepts itself, that people can use as individual persons to basically solve problems, and is directly associated with the problems of the non-white people who are subject to the system of white supremacy. There is a subtitle for the book, Textbook, Workbook for Thought, Speech, and/or Action for Victims of Racism. And that would be anyone who is classified as non-white who perceives him or herself to be a victim of racism. Then the book is written for this person in solving the problems that are associated with being a victim of racism. Now, sometimes people might have problems with the word victim. The word victim keeps coming up recently, and people have this term now is almost like something that a person shouldn't ever say, that they're a victim of anything. And there's a new term, I think it's a new term, called victimology that has come up recently in the last few years, where people are now saying that no one should invest in victimology. No one should go around saying that he or she is a victim. Don't look upon yourself as being a victim, because that's something that's a put down. That's a self put down. That's something that no one should ever perceive themselves as being under any circumstance, regardless of what the circumstances are. Don't look upon yourself as being a victim. That's a hangdog expression. That's a despair expression. That's an expression of not wanting to solve problems, just giving up, just giving over to your circumstances, whatever it is, like a leaf blowing in the wind. That's the latest view that has come out in the last, I'll say, 10 years. This thing about victimology. Don't invest in it. But the question is raised. Are there some people on this planet, do they exist, people who are really victims of things that are done that shouldn't be done by other people? Is that true or false? And so I retain that in the title of the book, Victims of Racism, because I say that you have racism, and if you have racism, you must have victims of racism. Otherwise, racism could not exist without victims.
How do you define victims, Mr. Fuller?
A person who is being mistreated, that's all, by another person within that context. If you're talking about people interaction, there's all kinds of victims. You can be victims of a victim of an accident, a victim of some type of housing scam or something like that. That's caused by people too. But you do have victims of racism if you have racism. That's logical. If there is such a thing as racism being practiced anywhere on a planet, you could not have racism in existence anywhere on the planet unless you had a victim of racism. You could not have a crime committed by one person against another unless that crime had a victim. Otherwise, you couldn't charge anyone with a crime. You couldn't put anybody into a police car.
The legal system would shut down, basically.
Yes, you would have no judges, no lawyers and whatnot if you didn't have victims.
No police, etc. Yeah.
Yes, you wouldn't need that. I mean, what do you need a bunch of lawyers that's standing around waiting on clients for?
Or military.
These clients are not victims or something.
Or military, or anything else. That's
or military, right.
Supposed to be law enforcement.
Yes, law enforcement. I mean, in other words, you're filing a complaint. You say someone injured you financially or physically or whatever. Well, you're declaring yourself as being a victim.
Absolutely.
Now, that's the logic. Now, if that's not true, then you can charge me with saying something that is not true.
Speaking of court language, Mr. Fuller, there is another term, I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I'd have to get lawyers in to verify. This term defendant, I'm sure you've studied law, you've looked at it, you've looked at the language of it. Is that different from victims, Mr. Fuller?
A defendant?
Yes.
Well, it depends on what context you want to put it in. I mean, defending against what? So the code, the way everything is approached in the compensatory system is when a person uses a word, like the word defendant,
mm-hmm.
and it isn't in my word guide, by the way,
mm-hmm.
Because I didn't put all words in the word guide.
Sure. It had been 12 million words. Yeah.
But if we do have that word on the table,
mm-hmm.
then the procedure always is when a person uses a word, the person using the word should define the word.
Mm-hmm.
The person using the word, that's according to what? Compensatory logic,
mm-hmm.
or universal logic, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
If a person is using a word, the person who is using the word should be able to explain what the word means so that you can have what? Communication. In order to have what? Out of communication. Understanding of what is being said. A word is nothing but a tool. A tool for doing what? Communicating. Communicating what you're trying to say so that people can understand what is being said and for what reason. Now, so a person who uses the word defendant should explain what they mean, not what the other person means, what the person down the track means, what the person on the other side of the world means. What the person who is using the word should explain. Well, I mean it when I say defendant. I mean this. and then explain it. And then that way they're communicating. Otherwise, you're not communicating. You're just throwing words out here, just sounds that don't mean anything to a person who's listening if they have no idea of what you're saying. Whole purpose for saying something is to communicate an idea, a concept, get results from what is being said. It's called understanding. I think there's a biblical expression out of all thy getting, get understanding.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So, defendant, then, we'd have to go through that same process.
Yes.
As you've watched the things that we're dealing with and looking at, how do you see the shape of things right now on the planet, Mr. Fuller? I guess I don't want to discuss specific electoral politics because I'm really kind of up to here with it. We know that whichever number wins, things will pretty much roll on the same. And we've seen that now, that's not going to be the way we make this thing change. What is the state of things right now, Mr. Fuller, as you survey the planet, as you look around, with all the time that you've had to think about this, look at it, your observations, your keen observations throughout history? That's what I want to talk about. What is the state of things right now? As we look at, and I want to talk about as we look forward, if we had like a little ball and then we looked into it, that old thing they program us on television. You see the crystal ball and you look at it. I want to talk about the state of things right now. And then where do you see this going if the current state of things does not change? Mr. Fuller.
More chaos and confusion for the immediate future. I would say for the next 4 to 6 years, you'll have a lot of that. The people who are running the business of the world, and I say that the people who run the business of the world, the people who are the most intelligent, the dominant force, and sadly enough, the people who have incorrect intentions about how the world should be run, are people who believe in racism in the form of white supremacy. Unfortunately, these are the people who are running everything on the planet in every area of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that takes in most of the areas of activity of the people on the planet. And the people who believe in dominating people and mistreating people based on color, unfortunately, are the people who are in charge of the affairs of the planet. According to what? According to all evidence. These are the people who make the major decisions about what people are going to do, what they're not going to do, their comings and goings, what they're going to value, what their ambitions are. The people who make these decisions are people who believe in mistreating people and dominating people based on color. And we loosely sometimes use the phrase white supremacy and or racism. Racism is white supremacy. White supremacy is racism. Now, these are the people who are making the plans for the immediate future because they are the dominant people. And they have decided that they're going to be doing business as usual because the system of racism is not trying to get in place. It's always been in place as far back as anybody who is breathing now can remember because it goes back very far. I don't know when it started, but it's still in place. So whatever happens now will happen on the basis of what they decide. So on the world economy, it'll be business as usual. Chaos, confusion, juggling with numbers about what kind of who's going to be employed, who's not going to be employed, doing what. These decisions have already been made. And what they do, if you're going to dominate people over a long period of time, you have to confuse them. So the economics, use of time and energy among the non-white people of this planet will be just a mass of confusion. all of their comings and goings, or where they're going to work, or what they should go to school and try to learn. And when they come out with their papers in their hands saying, I'm looking for a job, they'll be confused about what job to look for. Or if there is a job that is available to them, the white supremacists will make that job available because they are the controllers of all of the jobs. So they will decide for a non-white person where that non-person will work and what the return will be and what the value of the compensation will be, because the white supremacists determine the value of money. Money does not dominate them. They dominate money. Money does not make them. They make money. And they determine the value of everybody's money. That has to be remembered. A person might say, well, if I get X number of dollars or Krugerrands or whatever the currency is, they say, well, then I'll be able to do this, that, and the other. The white supremacists say, oh, I'm the one who will be paying you what you're talking about. So when you get it in your hand, you don't know what you can buy because I can push a button and double the price on everything at any given moment, or triple the price, or just price you out of the market altogether, so that even though you just received the money that I gave you, you won't be able to buy anything with it. Because I can change that price in a twinkling of an eye of everything that you were going to buy. So all your plans will go right down the drain. You thought you were going to buy a house and pay X number of dollars for it. But when you actually got ready in position to buy it, I went up on the price overnight. So now you're not able to buy the house, even though you are prepared for years. And then when you get pretty close to buying it again, I'll just up the price again. And then even after you buy the house, I can devalue the house with you in it so that your house and you become devalued. Simply because, why? I control everything, not some things, everything. You control nothing. There's not a black person on this planet that has control of anything, not in charge of anything in any area of activity, even though the white supremacists make it look like they're in charge. So that's what we're going to be looking forward to for the next 4 to 6 years. And why do I say 4 to 6 years? Because I think by then they may change the scenario. In other words, the way that they go about doing things.
When you say change, you mean they may come out of refinement?
They may. No, they'll still be. They will go into ultra refinement, meaning they will actually give people a little more relief. Because what they really want is to keep people confused. How do you keep people confused? Well, the basic principle of confusion, if you want to dominate people, is that you give them a little something and then you take it away.
Mm-hmm.
Then you give them a little something and then you take it away. And then you give them a whole lot of something and let them hold it for a while and let them get real comfortable with it. And then you stretch out the time that they can do this. That's why I say 4 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. After about 6 years, I mean, as a black person, I may get some relief. Every black person may get some relief. Depends on what the white supremacists decide. And by relief, I mean, it seems like we're really making progress. We're really able, for the first time, to really hold on to something. Not just get something, but hold on to something of value. Begin to make some kind of sense out of all this disorder. And hold on to it for a greater period of time. But then, the white supremacists, once we get good and comfortable, they will step in and undo it all again and send us right back into chaos and confusion.
Stay right there, Mr. Fuller. More to come on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. I'm Brother Kahari. You're listening to TalkTainmentRadio.com.
I want to help more kids graduate from high school.
Help more families learn how to budget and save.
I want my neighbors to have access to health care.
Help create opportunities for everyone in your community. Give, advocate, volunteer. Live United. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
At TalkTainmentRadio.com, we don't just talk. We don't just entertain. We've combined talk radio with the latest in online entertainment, with the ability to listen live at no cost 24/7. We are the premier online radio station. Outperforming the digital quality of our competitors, our shows are produced in a state-of-the-art studio by the best radio professionals in the business. Hosting live shows on location at some of the area's greatest and most popular events, we give you exactly what you want to hear with talk radio that matters to you. Join us online at TalkTainmentRadio.com, where you can listen live or play podcasts from the best shows in online talk radio. We give you a reason to come. We give you a reason to stay. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio the way it should be heard.
The Ohio State University Department of African American and African Studies Community Extension Center presents its 7th annual Black Veterans Day Salute, honoring African American veterans who served during Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraq Freedom on Saturday, November the 10th, 2012 at 11:30 a.m. through 1:30 p.m. This annual event is free and open to the public, but you must RSVP, and it must be made by November the 5th, 2012. For more information, call 292-3922 or email Twitty, that's TWITTY.1 at OSU.edu.
And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died and who gave that right to me.
If you are looking for a different dining experience, then get ready. Coming soon, The Sultan. The Sultan, located at 1765 Bryce Road, is Central Ohio's #1 restaurant for authentic Turkish and Mediterranean cooking. Each menu item at this wonderful dining place is guaranteed to deliver delightful, jubilant satisfaction. The Sultan's delectable Adana and Iskender kebabs are a heaven-like encounter of culinary bliss. You will also love their delicately seasoned baby lamb chops. The Sultan also specializes in gourmet Greek salads as well as scrumptious gyros. You can also get started with amazing hummus as well as delicious falafel wraps and shawarma wraps. In addition, you have to try the Sultan's fresh homemade dessert made by hand from scratch. You need to have this exquisite dining experience. The Sultan will be available for business in the next few days. For more information, call or stop by the Sultan at 1765 Bryce Road, just north of the intersection of Bryce and Livingston. The Sultan, the ultimate in Turkish and Mediterranean cuisine.
There are Volkswagen dealers, and there's Hatfield Volkswagen, featuring the 2013 Jetta for only $159 a month, and Motor Trend's Car of the Year, the 2013 Passat. Our service staff keeps your Volkswagen performing at its best, whether it's our carefree maintenance program or our 30-minute express oil change. And Hatfield Volkswagen offers fine pre-owned cars starting at $5,000. Mention Talktainment Radio for a free car wash. Experience the difference. Hatfield Volkswagen, 1495 Auto Mall Drive off I-270 at Georgesville Road, 465-VW or HatfieldVW.com.
Cutters. Uh-oh. What are we gonna do now? Give me the phone. Hello, Jimmy John's? Thank God you made it. I was so hungry I thought I was gonna die.
Jimmy John's, America's sandwich delivery experts.
Nice work, Johnson.
Face paint, sweater vest, Buckeye Extra Game Day Plus. Pick up Buckeye Extra Game Day Plus football Saturdays only in the Columbus Dispatch. Call 1-877-7-DISPATCH to subscribe.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I'm Tammy. I got your lucky number, heard exclusively on Conversating the AM at 11 a.m. Mondays and Fridays. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in talktainmentradio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on talktainmentradio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. I'm Brother Kahari, and I'm joining Mr. Fuller every week at this time, 10 a.m. live, Eastern Standard Time, but you can always go podcast the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. Mr. Neely Fuller is the author of what we would say is the definitive work, maybe the most definitive work ever on the subject of white supremacy, racism, and all of the effects that it has had over the many years, and how it has metamorphosized, how it transcended over the years, how it remains intact, how it works, why it works, and the impact that it has on the people that it's intended to affect. And Mr. Fuller has done an incredible amount of research, observation, and thinking on this issue. He's looked at it, thought about it, wrote about it, and looked at it, and he's produced works that he pushes ahead of himself so that the work can be analyzed, the information can be analyzed. Mr. Fuller, you kind of see yourself not as an author necessarily, but more as a conduit. Would that be a correct assessment?
I would say correctly, yes. That would be the way accurately I would describe what I actually do. I try to hold up a mirror as best I can, hopefully not distorted mirror, but a mirror that shows very clearly what is going on and why. And just look at the mirror, just a reflection of what is going on, and try to look at it in such a way that you don't see any distortions and whatnot. You filter out all of the distortions, and you see everything very clearly. Now, I'm not saying that I actually do that, but that's what I'm trying to do. And I think that to the great extent I have done it to some degree of satisfaction. I'm not satisfied until I see the whole picture, because the whole picture is not reflected in the mirror that I'm trying to fashion, because maybe my mirror is faulty. I don't know. But I'm searching for the truth about why things are the way that they are. That's all it is. I mean, we're looking at a situation, a world situation. Everybody wakes up every morning, and they are in the world, and they look at the world that's around them. And at some point, you wonder, what is going on? Why is it going on? Why are things the way that they are? People are coming and going, doing this and doing that. What is really behind everything? Is there some one person or two persons or a committee of persons that make things happen the way that they do? These are questions that everybody on the planet should ask him or herself every day. When you just look out the window or walk down a street or walk down a country road and just look around you and say, who is running everything? Is anybody running anything?
Yeah, is it on automatic pilot or something?
Yeah, is it on automatic pilot? Do things just happen? I mean, with no kind of plan? I mean, there's just a bunch of things that just happen to come together in a certain way or disintegrate in a certain way. I mean, who's running things?
And you know, Mr. Fuller, white people, black people, and all folk in between ought to all be asking this question.
All day, every day.
All day, every day. Mr. Fuller, let's go through something that I think is very, very important for people to understand. And then, as we look at the state of things, I think if you give an explanation at each phase and show examples of it, I think it helps us to understand where we are right now on this day, the 17th of October, 2012. You said that there were stages of white supremacy. Let's go through. I know it may seem basic to you, but I want to always go back to the basics because I think this is where understanding is best read. What are the stages, and could you give, if you could, examples of each stage, and what does each stage look like? And I'm going to keep you on task on this, and I want to go to all four of them and use examples so people can get an idea, a real clear idea of exactly what it looks like when they see it. Mr. Fuller.
Well, you have the 4 stages: establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement. The first stage is establishment, and that is somebody sometime in the past, obviously, thought up an idea. And that idea was to take the old royalist system and put it on a color basis, meaning what? The holier than thou. You should have a category of people who are, you might say, untouchable in a way that they're so powerful, so all-knowing, that you don't even question them in what they do things. You should have a category of people like that. In the ancient times, they said that the king or the queen were untouchables in that fashion, that the king is always right. Even when he's wrong, he's right. Why? Because he's the king. End of story. You don't have to discuss anything. The king said it, so that's it. I mean, God has spoken because the king is the God. And so that royal system has been around like forever, as far as anybody can remember. Someone came along and thought of taking the royal system and putting it on a color basis. And I don't know who that was, when it was, and that really doesn't matter at this juncture. But somebody evidently did it because the evidence is here. Said, let's say that a category of people called white, we will call the category of people called white. When you look at people, you'll say that they are white people. And then we will say that there are a category of other people who will be non-white, black, brown, red, yellow, tan, beige, etc. But they will be in the category of non-white people. And the people who are in the category of white people will be the royal people. They're always right about everything. White is right. And the non-white people will be also ran. I mean, in other words, they come up, they bring up the rear. They are the subject people. They're the people who have no voice. They're the people who are told what to do. They don't tell anybody anything. And they definitely don't tell white people what to do. So we will call this white supremacy and or racism or racism. And so that's what they thought of. The evidence is here. And that's what we've read about. And we have seen it in action. And once that idea took root and it was established in all 9 areas of activity worldwide, and it took off like a brush fire, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, and it covered all of those areas of activity, it was established. And it has never turned loose since it has been established. There have been a few glitches, but they ironed out the glitches over a period of time. So that was the establishment phase. Then it went to the maintenance phase, meaning just like when you set up any system, you want that system to be maintained. So they have maintained it since it has been established. There's never been a break in that. There's never been a time when white supremacy has been out of business since it was established. And I think if anybody do any research, they can't say that there was a time when there was white supremacy and then it stopped, and then over a period of time
so
maintenance
means you. Does that mean you stabilize it, keep
Yes.
it going, you reinforce it every day? Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's like a business. You establish your business.
Mm-hmm.
You might have a lot of problems trying to get it established, getting it established.
Mm-hmm.
So you might establish it on a piecemeal basis, just like running a restaurant or a garage or anything. You get it established. Then you maintain what you have established. I mean, you bring in your cleaning crew and all like that. You check and see if it's a building. I mean, and your business is inside the building. You go around and check the bricks, and you check the heating system. You maintain it, like maintaining a car or hotel or whatever, highway system. You maintain what you have set up. Like railways, they have to be maintained. A political system has to be maintained. And the white supremacist system is a political system. Based on what? Dominating and mistreating people based on color, the color of the people. Those are people that are supposed to be mistreated and dominated. That's what they're here for. Why? Because we said so, under the system of white supremacy. So let's maintain this in every area of activity, because we have to do it in every area of activity, because if you let any area of activity get out of your control, it has an erosive effect. If you let the sexual activity get out of from under your control, if you can't dominate and confuse the people in their sexuality, then and you let that get out of your control, then that will have a spillover effect into other areas of activity, like religion, like labor, like education, like entertainment even, and of course economics, the use of time and energy. So you want to maintain what you have already set up. That's the second stage.
Now, Mr. Fuller, would you say that this is the most important stage of the whole thing? Because you can establish something, but if you don't maintain that business is out of business.
Absolutely. Well, all of the stages are important once you have established it, and all of the stages are interactive, because once you establish it, it couldn't be maintained unless it first was established.
Mm-hmm.
So then that third stage is expansion. Now, how do you expand your business of racism, mistreating people on the basis of color? Well, that happens naturally. Naturally how? Because there are more people on the planet now than there were before.
Mm-hmm.
The planet keeps increasing in population.
Mm-hmm.
So as more and more non-white people are born, they are born into a system that's already established. So now you're expanding the system. It's like being on a slave plantation and more children are born to the slaves. You are expanding your slave business. I read something recently on Thomas Jefferson, and he said that he liked the breeders that he had. I mean, he liked to have strong women, slave women on his plantation, because they had more babies. And the more babies that the slave women would have, the more capital he would have, the more slaves he would have, because the babies would grow up and have more slaves, more babies. And so his business is expanded. And therefore, the plantation would prosper more. It's a business. And racism is a business.
That's what I wanted to get to.
That's
Yeah,
expansion.
Yeah,
Yes,
and that's interesting that you would use a business concept, a business model. What you are saying, and I want to be clear, you're saying racism is a business. That's a whole different look. That's why I say this is a definitive work. It's a whole different look at this model. I don't think when I was coming up at the universities, we've always heard capitalism, racism, all these other, but no one has ever looked at it using this analysis to look at it as a business. The same methodology used to set up a business. What you're saying is practically the same methodology used to set it up. Am I correct?
Yes, but where some people mistake this business of white supremacy with what we call normal business in the commercial world, a lot of people say, well, and you've probably heard the expression down through the years, I used to believe it, well, what the white supremacists are really after is money. They're trying to, what they are really trying to achieve in this business of racism is money. They're just trying to accumulate money. No, money is just a means toward an end. So that raises the question. If the white supremacists are not trying to accumulate money because they have control of all the money, they are the ones who decide what money is. So therefore, what is it that they're after? And that's what baffles most people. but it's real simple. And you might say it's kind of lunatic, but it's simple and it's efficient. The purpose of the system of white supremacy is white supremacy. That's the payoff. That's the business payoff. All they want is the system of white supremacy to be intact, not to get more oil. They already have that. Not to get more tin, diamonds, gold. They already have that. They're not looking for anything other than to maintain the system as a value itself.
Mr. Fuller, stay right there. As we begin to explore this, we're going to look at how racism is marketed. How is it advertised? And how are the books balanced? How is income derived? Oh, we got a lot more for you. Stay right there. This is a compensatory concept heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
TalkTainmentRadio.com. Food for thought.
Recently, I took a trip by airplane. Needless to say, it was an experience. I have concluded that to get through security without much effort, one must go to the airport half naked. Wearing no jewelry of any kind, even wearing plastic jewelry, I was still detained to have my ears more closely inspected. Shoes have to be removed, which is a definite inconvenience during the summer since I don't like to wear socks. It's unnerving walking barefoot in the same footprints of hundreds of thousands of other people. As I removed my infinity scarf that I had wrapped around my neck 3 times, I felt a twinge of embarrassment when I almost choked myself trying to get out of it. Finally, through security, I felt closer to my fellow travelers, all of us having to retrieve our belongings and get redressed to start our journeys. Next trip, I will wait to get fully dressed at the airport after passing through security.
That's another food for thought. To hear additional food for thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
Save the date. Talktainment Radio will be hosting an open house street fair on November 3rd. To thank our loyal listeners, talented hosts, amazing clients, and our great staff, and to celebrate our move into a new office space, we're inviting you to our November 3rd open house. Don't forget to save the date. Saturday, November 3rd. We can't wait to see you there. Save the date, the date, the date, the date, the date. Save the date. Saturday, November 3rd.
Join in on the fun from 12 to 6 p.m. at 462 Town Street. That's 462 Town Street. See you there.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
If you are looking for a different dining experience, then get ready. Coming soon, The Sultan. The Sultan, located at 1765 Bryce Road, is Central Ohio's #1 restaurant for authentic Turkish and Mediterranean cooking. Each menu item at this wonderful dining place is guaranteed to deliver delightful, jubilant satisfaction. The Sultan's delectable Adana and Iskender kebabs are a heaven-like encounter of culinary bliss. You will also love their delicately seasoned baby lamb chops. The Sultan also specializes in gourmet Greek salads as well as scrumptious gyros. You can also get started with amazing hummus as well as delicious falafel wraps and shawarma wraps. In addition, you have to try the Sultan's fresh homemade dessert made by hand from scratch. You need to have this exquisite dining experience. The Sultan will be available for business in the next few days. For more information, call or stop by the Sultan at 1765 Bryce Road, just north of the intersection of Bryce and Livingston. The Sultan, the ultimate in Turkish and Mediterranean cuisine.
I'm Tammy. I got your lucky number, heard exclusively on Conversating the AM at 11 a.m. Mondays and Fridays. Make sure you tune in for your lucky number. Punch in TalkTainmentRadio.com and click on Listen Live and listen for your lucky number.
We've got the power.
Justice is better than racism.
This is the compensatory concept, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. Joining me, of course, is Mr. Neely Fuller. I'm Brother Kahari. This is the compensatory concept, and we are looking at a number of issues related to racism, the state of the existence as we have it right now on this date, October the 17th, the year 2010. And we were going through the 4 stages. Mr. Fuller, I think you had covered 2, so we wanted to get to, I believe the other one was expansion. I think you hit expansion. And the last one would be refinement. And then I've got a question. I want to begin to look at racism, as you say, as a business model. And then there's a couple of thoughts that I have that I'd like for you to address. Let's go to the 4th stage, which I believe is refinement. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, the refinement stage here in 2012, October the 17th, is the last stage. That's putting the finishing touches on it. It's just like after you build your house and all like that, and you get all of the structure, you get your basement and whatnot, and you walk through all the rooms, and you see that everything is sound, that the electrical system, the plumbing system is working. And so then you say, okay, now we'll put the finishing touches on it. And usually, if you watch a house being built, you see the refinements come in. I mean, you start planting the trees and the roses and the petunias and all that outside or around the house. And that's when you start tailoring the lawns, making sure that they are nice and neat and in place. And you paint the house. I mean, you pick out some colors for the rooms and all like that. You go through it, both inside and outside, and you put the finishing touches. And make sure that every little detail is right in place. And so that's what the white supremacists are or have been doing for the most part since they have gotten into the maintenance and the expansion and completed that. They have completed that. White supremacy is intact. So since then, I don't know what year you could mark that or anything like that. I mean, it's not done that way. They know what their refinement tactics are. But for the most part, they have been refining the system of white supremacy because it's been long established and it's taken root. So they've just been putting the finishing touches and experimenting with different layouts.
Different methodologies.
Right. Every now and then they kind of shift the furniture around or something like that. Well, I think the potted plant looks a little better over here. And I think, we need some, I think in the foyer we're going to have some new curtains. I think we'll redo the floors. And so it's the same way with the people that they handle. And I want to centralize, too, on the reason for all of this. The reason for white supremacy is white supremacy itself. Well, you say, well, if it's a business, what is the payoff? The payoff is fun and glory. Fun and glory. And the material profit that goes with fun and glory.
That's what I was going to ask you about. How is, there's 2 questions. Actually, we don't have enough time for me to get through all of them, but I'll choose some of the ones I think is most significant. How is white supremacy marketed?
That's how it's marketed. In all advertising and all like that. You see, recently I saw a segment on television of how the people in what we call, quote, unquote, Asia, that is the designation by the white supremacists, the ladies are now trying to lighten their skin. They say they don't want a yellow skin.
Mm-hmm.
They say, whiter skin is much better. See, that's part of the refinement. That's the white supremacists at work. And what is the result of all of this in the refinement stage? Well, the result is what it's always been, and that is, particularly in the refinement stage, and that is the white supremacists have what I call, and I put it in the word guide, the 3 T's of politics when it comes to interaction between white and non-white. And that is, the white supremacists have established the 3 T's, and that's tacky, number 1, number 2, trashy, number 3, terroristic, meaning you never get any better than tacky in the interrelationships between, if you can call them relationships, white and non-white. If you will notice, all around you every day, if you tell the truth about it, when black people are around white people, the basic interaction between the black people and the white people, at very best, is tacky. Have you ever noticed the way that black people talk to white people and the way that black people talk to white people, even when they're on panels on television and whatnot? I mean, you see a sort of a nervous laughter. Usually the black people start the laughter because they can sense that there might be a little bit of tension there. So no matter what they're discussing, somehow the black people wind up laughing and joking about very serious subjects. Because if they don't laugh and joke, then it gets too serious too quick, and then hostility begins to form.
Yeah.
See? So everybody sort of start doing a little backslapping, a little laughing and joking and making jokes about everything. And so what started out to be a very serious conversation kind of degenerates into almost a comedy act. Pay attention to it. That's what I mean by tackiness. See, that's tacky. That's not being honest. That's not being forthright. You can be forthright without being hostile. You can be truthful without being hostile if you just handle everything in a business-like manner and just describe everything the way that it truly is, and then try to work through solving problems. But when you see white people and black people, non-white people sitting around, whatnot, and they start interacting with each other in any setting, it doesn't get any better than tacky. And if they try to improve on the tackiness, what usually happens, it degenerates into trashiness. They start trashing each other, either directly or indirectly. I mean, even, they'll be coming up during the so-called holidays in the Northwestern Hemisphere. Ever notice an office party? It starts off with that nervous tackiness.
Yeah.
I'm talking about an office party.
Yeah, I've seen it.
All right. Now, when they try to improve in the conversations and whatnot on the tackiness cannot be improved because it's going to remain tacky in the system of racism. So where does it go? It goes into trashiness. And all of a sudden, all of the activities of the black people and the white people at that party turns out to be trashy. You can depend on it. It's going to get trashy if they try to improve on the tackiness. And then, from trashy, it goes to that third T. If it really peaks out, it's going to the third T, and that is terroristic. Somebody starts drinking. Somebody uses what they call the magic word, maybe. See, so they can't go any further. If you don't want this thing to get out of hand, you have to try to keep it in the tacky stage.
Mr. Fuller,
and that's very difficult to do.
Right. As one of the things that maybe we can revisit on another program, and it really is striking me is quite deep, and I think a lot of us have missed it, but I think you have pointed it out, is the whole way in which this thing is marketed. And because marketing is very vital to any business at any level. I don't care which, they've got to figure out who they're marketing to, who they're getting their service to, how they're informing people, et cetera, et cetera. But under refinement, it's dynamic the way it has been, the way it's marketed under the system of racial refinement. I mean, I could see under the system of establishment where you'd have wars and so-called imperialism conquers and all that kind of stuff. But under a stage of high deception, it is amazing the system that's used to market it. Am I correct in this?
Absolutely. White supremacy can only be maintained through deception and violence. And you can't have that direct violence all the time. Now, deception is a form of violence, but it is a form of violence that is much more efficient than direct violence. The white supremacists do not want to stand over every one of their people that they are dominating with a gun every day. That's too difficult. So how do you control people without doing that to their detriment? you fool them. You fool them by having all kinds of little things that you keep them interested in to deceive them. Send them in this direction. Send them in that direction. Tell them that this is the fashion of the day. Have them chasing after that. And then after they do a little bit of that and they get kind of weary of it, then come up with something else. So the advertising aspect that you've said is very important. Always have their values shaped for them by you if you're going to dominate them. Everything that they value. Well, we got this coming up. We got this coming up. Now, this is something you people should be interested in. So go over here and do this. Go over here and do that. Since your minds are blank, you don't have any plans of your own, I make plans for you. I tell you what to value. I tell you what not to value. I tell you what's important and what isn't important.
Mr. Fuller, thank you so much. We've run up against the clock. We appreciate you once again.
Yes, thank you.